We're talking about the travel industry. As we look at travel industry, it's only apt looking at the title when it says from shock to surge. We've seen how a lot of it to do with travel, or for that matter, hospitality, a lot of it came to a halt during the pandemic. And now with things opening up, it's time to actually hit the top gear in this industry. So let's find out all those insights coming in from our amazing speaker joining us. We have Glenn Fogel, who's the president and CEO of Booking Holdings, who will be in conversation with Vinod Mahanta, senior editor at the Economic Times. In fact, Glenn is the president and CEO of Booking Holdings, and he was previously also the head of worldwide strategy and planning, as well as executive vice president of corporate development, where he actually got to oversee global mergers, acquisitions, and strategic alliances. So let's actually move on from shock to surge, and let's deep dive into this another conversation around the travel industry. Here we go.
Thanks so much, Kavya. Glenn, welcome to the Global Business Summit 2022.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let me just dive straight in. Several countries around the world have been easing restrictions. What kind of signals are you picking up from the global outpost on recovery in travel and hospitality services? And what kind of impact do you foresee of the Ukraine-Russia conflict on this recovery?
Yeah, it's definitely been a difficult time for the travel industry over the last few years. We'd all hoped that we were going to return to normal after the initial outbreak of COVID. And then there came the Delta variant, which, as we know, was just so devastating around the world and set us back. And then we felt things were getting better. And then Omicron came on. And now we're feeling, okay, Omicron's gone away. We're just beginning to think, okay, things are going to get better. Travel will come back. And now we have this terrible, terrible situation that's going on in the Ukraine with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So many problems for travel. But here's the interesting thing to me is that people will always want to travel. That demand for travel is always going to be there. When things are safe, when government restrictions are lifted, people begin to book right away. I feel it immediately. I see it in our numbers. So yes, it's been a terrible, terrible problem. And yes, we have to continue to monitor and make sure we can do what we can to make things better everywhere. And in certain parts of the world, it is better. In the United States, for example, travel is really picking up. Obviously, in parts of Asia, it's been slower depending on which country you're in because of the Omicron variant. But even there, I'm beginning to see things come back up. The thing that we absolutely need are a couple of things. We need governments to continue to work to make things safe. And I mean safe everywhere for everyone. And to do that, we need to get those vaccinations out. I'm just absolutely impressed by the Indian government and how many people have been vaccinated. The numbers are truly credit to the government of India for getting those vaccinations out. It's going to take time. There's going to be problems still. 2022, I hope, is better. I think it'll be better than 2021, and then 2023 better than 2022. But one of the things is we just don't know for sure. But I am still encouraged about the 2022 summer season.
A lot of businesses, including Booking, have had to halt operations in Russia. Do you think that the geopolitical instability will be a key business trend for global businesses over the next few years?
It's hard to say. We had, for a very long time, globalization, but then we began to see people concerned about dependencies on other places, particular supply chains that were far away. And we saw that in COVID. For example, when countries learned that they didn't actually produce so many of the critical things that are needed to protect people, they weren't produced in their own country, and they needed to come from somewhere else because, wait a minute, maybe on some critical things, we should do it on our own. And then you go into other areas, things that are very important, like chips for electronics, for all the things, the technology. And people said, wait a minute, these are not produced here. Are we depending too much on just one area for these things? So, and then you end up with, unfortunately, the political situation. You see this horrific war, and we see how that too is going to cause countries are choosing sides and where they're going to work or not work. This is a problem. We know that for the benefit of the world, trade improves everybody in terms of their economic situation, but we also know there are risks. when there is this globalization. And governments are trying to decide how much should they decide they can depend on others and how much do they need to do it on their own, even though it costs more. And it's going to be something that government's going to have to come to a decision on.
Sure. You run multiple global businesses. Do you fear we are entering an era of deglobalization?
Well, that's what I said. I think that we definitely see it in some parts of the world, definitely, where people are deciding that they prefer to depend internally. There is definitely a nationalization type issue, being more nationalistic and wanting to depend on their own. We've seen it, obviously, China has been very vocal about, things China builds it for itself. The United States similarly saying, we need to produce things here. India also. There are many countries that are saying we need for certain critical things to make sure that we can source these things internally. But as I just pointed out, in terms of economic growth, trade is good, globalization is good, but I recognize the need for some countries feeling that they need to depend within their country for certain critical supply issues.
So one of the things in the last 2 years is we've seen two black swan kind of events, one after another. And I speak to a lot of CEOs, they are still expecting some kind of normal. Maybe this is the new normal. So what are you expecting? How are you preparing for what's next? Because some kind of scenario planning, I'm sure you must have done, and that can throw some light on, whether you are factoring discontinuities in the business or business as usual.
It is hard. We've seen so many shocks over the last just few years, but even before that, we'd seen shocks. The issue is that the world is never going to be a constant. There is only constant change, and we need to prepare for them. And we know there can be things that happen that are a low probability, but when they happen, they have a very large impact. And you do need to prepare for those potential things to happen. That, of course, is a cost to businesses. And it's always the job of management to decide how much do they need to spend on preparing for things that are going to be problematic if they happen, but they are a low probability. And that's the job of management to come up with what the right balance is.
Sure. One of the things while I was researching for this interview was, you have given a very open and very frank interview on basically the travel industry. And I think the statement was that travel, we are still in the Stone Age. And you've been talking about this concept of connected trip. Can you share your vision with us and basically how you are steering your company around this vision?
Vinod, I'm sorry again, because of the connectivity, you'll have to repeat that again for me. I'm sorry.
No. So I was reading one of your interviews and you have said that in travel, we are still in the Stone Age.
Right.
And you've been talking about this concept of connected trip.
Yes.
So can you share the vision with us and how you are steering your company around it?
Right. So that is something that I have said several times about travel, unlike many other things, seems to not be using all the technological capabilities of this world. You travel, I travel, and we know it's still so frustrating at times. And you wonder, why is this? I can do so many other things so easily using technology, yet I still have the terrible problem of making my booking. And then when I'm going to the airport, do I know whether or not how long security will be? And how, when I get on the plane, if the plane's delayed, is there going to be a car to pick me up or not? Or are they going to have gone away because I'm late? And the hotel issues are even more interesting to me sometimes. When you show up at a hotel and you go to check in, and then you have to tell the person all the information you use to book online. Why is that? There's so many areas. So we believe that we should use technology to make travel easier. And by using all the things that we know, make it seamless, frictionless, make it so it's personalized, make it so that it's not so frustrating when you go to make your trip originally. You absolutely just are always overwhelmed by things, and making sure it's right. We believe that technology can make things so much better. And that's what we're trying to do. And through all the data that we have and all the AI and all the technology we have, we want to make it so that doing travel is as easy as getting a ride sharing thing, as easy as so many other things that we do in technology.
So a lot of CEOs say that never waste a downturn. And I believe booking has been reorganizing in the last 2 years. There have been some acquisitions, more outsourcing. You've added to your product line, service line. So what kind of booking 2.3 or 3.0 are we going to see?
Well, what we first hope to see is something that's a lot easier than we have right now. Now, we have done some acquisitions. I'm very pleased about them. One is closed. That's the Get a Room acquisition. One has not. That's eTraveli, which is a European flight business. The idea, though, is that even though things have been, let's say, volatile for the travel industry, you still have to progress and make things better for your products. And we've been doing that. And that means everything from coming up with ways to show people that it's safe to travel in certain areas, show that these particular accommodations are using all the methods to make sure it's safe to travel there because of COVID, to other things that we really hadn't done in the past, but I'm very proud of, like we know how important sustainability is. So we came up with this thing that is called a travel sustainability badge for hotels or any type of accommodation that is doing things that are sustainable. We want to recognize it. So a traveler can see that and then choose to book there because that particular accommodation is doing it sustainably, coming up with all the new ways so that people are able to do their travel easier and feel proud of what they're doing.
Since you brought up sustainability, I was reading your blog on LinkedIn on sustainability. Do you think that even in times of such chaos and uncertainty, sustainability will still be a top agenda for CEOs going forward?
Yeah, look, we only have one planet. This is it. It's our only home. We do not have another planet that we can move to. So we've got to make sure that every industry is working to make things more sustainable. Now, I understand when times are difficult, you have to prioritize and you have to see how much can we devote to one particular area versus another area. But I would say we can't stop doing things for sustainability. We've got to continue to do it. The rate that we do these improvements, I agree, has to depend on the state of the industry. And that's what we think we're doing a good balance on.
In India, we've seen a sharp bounce back in domestic travel. How has the Booking India business done, and when do you think by when they'll be back to pre-pandemic numbers?
Well, that's an interesting question that everybody would like to know the answer to. Me too. I think it's very hard right now because of the volatility to know exactly when will we be past 2019 numbers for everybody in the industry. Some areas are going to come back faster than others. And we talked about it in our earnings call recently, where we saw higher summer bookings in Europe, for example, than we did in 2019 at this point. Now, it's uncertain, though, will those turn into actual bookings? They're reservations now, but they're cancelable. So we'll have to see. Look, the thing that will help us come back the fastest is if people continue to do all the right things, governments more than anyone, to try and make things safer. And that's the vaccinations. That's making sure that we're doing all the steps we can to deal with this COVID pandemic, because that is the thing that is helping to prevent us from recovering as quickly as we could.
During the last downturn in 2008 in global financial crisis, we saw Airbnb come up. We've been in a crisis for 2 years now. Do you see a new competitor coming in? And the new competitor is going to be from the technology side or from an incumbent who's getting into digitization? What kind of combination do you see? What kind of competitor do you see?
Well, it is interesting, and certainly when things have extreme changes, either in the economies around the world, we do see lots of different changes. Certainly, we saw that in the financial crisis. That did begin the company Airbnb, and that did show how people were willing to do something different than using a hotel. And that was one innovation, so to speak. Then there are other things, for example, with COVID. As horrific and terrible as COVID is, it certainly has stimulated things that are new and different. And it's not a travel industry thing, but the acceleration of building platforms to be able to do vaccinations and new drugs the way they've done it in the pharmaceutical company, it's amazing. So definitely there is opportunity for all of us to make changes as under whether it's a terrible situation or a good thing, to make things different and better for the future. 5 years from now, what do I think will be different? Will there be new companies? I don't know, but I think there'll definitely be improvements. And that's why we're working on it right now in our Connected Trip vision, to really make it easier, in an easy way for people to travel, instead of right now, which is still, unfortunately, more difficult than it should be.
So one of the most profitable parts of travel business is the corporate travel segment. When do you see the corporate travel segment bouncing back?
Well, I think there are two things. One, it's definitely coming back now, but I think that always people will be more careful about doing their corporate travel than in the past, because now we have all these new technologies like Zoom, like we're doing right now. And the question for every business is, do we need to do that trip? Do I need to spend that money? And it's also hard on the traveler. For me to go to, look, I've gone to India a lot. I've gone to Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. I've gone to India a lot. And it's hard. I live in New York. It's a long trip. It takes a lot out of you. Sometimes back in the past, I said, why do I have to travel? Can't we do it another way? Well, now we can do it another way. Now we can have a Zoom meeting instead, and I don't have to spend so much time on the plane and then getting to the place and then coming home. I think that there's going to be a smaller percentage of corporate travel as a percentage of the total travel. But of course, as economies grow and people are going to do some travel for corporate reasons, it will go back and past 2019 at some point. But I do believe it will always be a smaller percentage of total travel.
So one of the things that COVID did was basically it forced people to work together with each other, with the suppliers, with the customers, and then people came up with new innovative ideas. How did you manage this? How did you manage to get unique synergies and creative solutions within booking business?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was absolutely true. At the beginning of the pandemic, the question was, first, how can we help our supplier partners? At the same time, of course, we had to help support our traveler customers who were on the middle of a two-sided marketplace. But we did it. What we were doing is coming up with new ways for hotels and other accommodations to show to potential travelers that their property was safe, and coming up with all the different ways to work with the supporter, to support the partners, and what's the best way for them to promote and to show what they were selling, which was their accommodations. Now, then again, we do things like technology, showing a hotel, for example, that your best opportunity to get customers is doing this kind of pricing or this kind of special deal for this particular customer niche, and working with them using all our technology and our data to come up with the best way for our partners to be able to get more business. It's hard. It's hard when something like pandemic comes in, but working together, we're able to do that. And then, of course, I've mentioned the travel, sustainable travel badge, that we are absolutely helping our partners show that they are different and better than their competitor down the street. Of course, everybody, I hope, does do this. But for now, it's a competitive world. And here's another way that one of our partners, a hotel or a private home, can show that they are the place that a traveler should come because they're doing something sustainable.
So one of the things a lot of companies have relied on basically is more and more getting more and more information from the data you have. I had a chance to visit the Booking.com office in Amsterdam and interact with the data and analytics team. Amazing, the stuff, kind of cutting edge stuff that they are doing. So did you rely on data more during this period to get more insights on pricing, demand forecasting?
Yeah, every day, data becomes more and more important for every business, travel as much as anyone, maybe more, because there is so much information out there. The companies like ours that are able to use that data, be able to come up with insights and use the analysis to be able to actually make changes or make decisions faster and better are the ones who are going to win. I think one of the benefits of this is scale. A bigger company with more data and more analysts and more technological capability to use all of this in a better way is going to have an advantage. And we do this, and then we share all of this with our partners to help them do things because they are smaller and they couldn't do it on their own. We do it for them and with them. That is showing some of the value we bring to our travel partners. A lot of people don't understand how much value we provide to our partners, and this is one of them, is doing things that they couldn't do, particularly in the area of analytics with big data.
So my last question, a lot has changed in the last 2 years. A lot of trends have been accelerated by many years. So what do you think are the long-term changes in the industry? What do you think are the short-term changes in the industry?
Well, let's do the short term first. The short term is we know that people want to travel, and everything we can do to make it easier and better for them to know where can they travel safely, what are the places that are okay to go travel, making sure the partners are doing all the things they can so it's safe for travel. Those are the short-term things we can do right away, and we are doing them right away. Long-term, it's really changing the way travel is done, in the sense that right now, people go to different vendors for different parts of their trip. They go first maybe for the flights. And by the way, we just started doing flights in India right now. Got that up, and we're beginning to grow that. I'm very proud of the team that got up our product there. And then perhaps they need the accommodation. Then they need the ground transportation. And then what are they going to do when they get to the destination? By tying this all together in a seamless, frictionless way with one payment platform that we're building, so people are absolutely going to have it so that they are able to do it easier. And if anything goes wrong, you deal with one vendor, one company, Booking.com, who can fix it for that customer without them having to go through all the different vendors, all the different people to talk to. It's a mess right now. We're going to make it better.
Let me slip one in before I let you go. About India, you've said that you've started flights. So what are your plans for the India market?
Well, look, the India market is an incredible opportunity for anybody who wants to be in the travel industry. We know, of course, it's been somewhat depressed because of the pandemic. And we know coming out, it has taken a little bit of time. And we know the government is slowly opening up international travel. We saw the recent announcements, and obviously we are hopeful that in the not so distant future, all international travel will be opened up, but we recognize that governments have to do what is appropriate for the safety of its citizens and its country. We understand that. I do believe that we need to continue to do what we are doing, which is making sure that Booking.com is a well-recognized travel player in India and able to give the great service that we do throughout the world, so that the Indian traveler is able to get the benefits of all the things that we offer.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you.